Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We have just witnessed a seismic shift in the tennis landscape, a moment that will be etched into the annals of Wimbledon history forever. In what can only be described as the most jaw-dropping, unprecedented upset of the 2026 season, and perhaps of the entire decade, 21-year-old Filipino sensation Alex Eala has just done the absolute unthinkable. She has stunned the defending champion, the seemingly invincible Iga Świątek, on the hallowed grounds of center court. This was not just a defeat. This was a total collapse by the Polish superstar, a Wimbledon shocker that has sent shockwaves rippling through the entire sporting world. Think about the sheer magnitude of this. Iga Świątek arrived in London as the reigning queen, the defending champion who had finally conquered her grass court demons, looking poised to build a dynasty on the turf to match her dominance on the clay of Roland Garros. She had steamrolled her early opposition, navigating the first two rounds with the ruthless efficiency we have all come to expect. Meanwhile, Alex Eala stepped onto court, carrying the weight of an entire nation on her shoulders. As the first Filipina ever to be seated at a Grand Slam, and the first to ever reach the third round, she was stepping into the most glaring spotlight imaginable against the most dominant force in modern women's tennis. Most pundits gave Eala a puncher's chance at best. But what unfolded over the course of this gripping, nerve-shredding encounter defied every prediction, every metric, and every ounce of conventional tennis wisdom. We saw Swiatek, a player renowned for her supreme mental fortitude and relentless baseline aggression, completely unravel under the intense glare of the London sun. We saw unforced errors creeping into her normally flawless, machine-like game. We saw the pressure mount, the frustration boil over, until the psychological dam finally broke. And across the net, we saw an absolute masterclass in tactical brilliance, shot-making, and icy composure from Alex Eala. She did not just survive the storm, she orchestrated it. Today, we are going to break down exactly how this historic, earth-shattering upset happened. We are going to analyze the strategic genius of Eala, the surprising psychological breakdown of Swiatek, the deep-rooted history leading up to this monumental clash, and what this means for the future of the WTA Tour. Settle in, because this is a deep dive into the match that just changed tennis history. To truly understand the gravity of what just transpired on center court, we have to rewind and look at the intertwined narratives that brought both of these extraordinary athletes to this exact moment in time. Let us begin with the challenger, Alex Eala. For years, those deeply embedded in the tennis world have known about the prodigious talent brewing in the Philippines. Eala, a product of the famed Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, has always possessed a game that belied her age. We saw flashes of her brilliance in the junior ranks, capturing Grand Slam junior titles and showing a fiery competitiveness reminiscent of her idol and mentor, Nadal himself. But transitioning from a junior prodigy to a legitimate threat on the professional tour is a notoriously brutal crucible. Many highly touted juniors crumble under the physical and mental demands of the WTA circuit. Eala, however, has proven to be made of sterner stuff. The 2026 season has been nothing short of a revelation for the young Filipina. Coming into Wimbledon, she had already put the tour on notice. She captured the title in Birmingham, demonstrating a startling affinity for the slick, unpredictable grass courts, and followed that up a phenomenal run to the semifinals in Berlin. These were not fluke victories. These were systematic dismantlings of top-tier opponents. This grass court pedigree propelled her to the 29th seed at Wimbledon, a historic milestone for the Philippines. In her second-round match against Maya Joint, Eala showed tremendous grit, recovering from a set-down to win 3-6, 6-2, 6-0. That match was intensely personal, serving as revenge for a heartbreaking loss to Joint in the Eastbourne final the previous year, a loss Eala openly admitted left her in tears for months. That remarkable bounce-back ability showed us that Eala had matured, that she had developed the emotional scar tissue necessary to survive the grueling pressures of Grand Slam tennis. On the other side of the net, you had Iga Świątek, the world number one, the defending Wimbledon champion. Swiatek has built an aura of invincibility over the last few years that few players in the history of the sport have ever achieved. Her heavy topspin forehand, her incredible court coverage, and her suffocating return game have made her a terrifying prospect for anyone in the draw. While grass was once considered her weakest surface, Her triumph here at Wimbledon last year supposedly laid those ghosts to rest. She proved she could adapt her extreme Western grip and sliding movement to the slick turf. Coming into this third-round match, Swiatek had effortlessly dispatched Karolina Pliskova in just 69 minutes. She looked sharp. She looked focused. She looked utterly unbeatable. But there was a subtle undercurrent of tension heading into this specific matchup. These two had met twice before, and the head-to-head was split at one match apiece. While Swiatek comfortably won their encounter on the clay of Madrid, it was Eala who shocked the world by defeating Swiatek during her fairy tale run to the Miami Open semifinals in 2025. Swiatek knew that Eala possessed the tools to hurt her. In her pre-match press conference, Swiatek acknowledged Eala's tricky game, specifically noting her ability to change rhythm and disrupt timing. Swiatek knew this would not be a routine walkover, but absolutely nobody could have predicted the total systemic failure that was about to unfold. As the players walked out onto center court, the atmosphere was electric. The crowd was a fascinating mix of traditional Wimbledon purists and an incredibly vocal, passionate contingent of Filipino fans waving flags and chanting Eala's name. From the very first ball, it was evident that Eala was not simply happy to be there. She was not intimidated by the occasion, the venue, or the Titan standing across the net. Eala won the toss and elected to receive, a bold statement of intent. She wanted to apply pressure immediately, and that is exactly what she did. In the opening set, Eala executed a tactical game plan so brilliant, so meticulously crafted, it felt like she had hacked into Swiatek's tennis mainframe. The blueprint for troubling Swiatek on faster surfaces relies on rushing her, denying her the time to set up her massive, looping forehand, and keeping the ball completely out of her strike zone. Eala did this masterfully. She utilized a skidding, biting backhand slice that stayed impossibly low on the grass, forcing Swiatek to dig the ball out from her shoelaces. Because Swiatek uses an extreme grip, hitting through a ball that is ankle-high on a fast, slippery surface is incredibly difficult, and we immediately saw the world number one framing shots and netting routine rally balls. Eala paired this low slice with sudden, explosive injections of pace down the line, catching Swiatek flat-footed. But the real genius of Eala's first set was her use of the drop shot. Now, playing a drop shot against one of the fastest players on tour might seem suicidal, but Eala used it not as a winner, but as a disruptive tool. She disguised it beautifully, dragging Swiatek forward into the forecourt, an area where the Polish star is historically less comfortable. Once Swiatek scrambled forward, Eala would nonchalantly pass her or force an awkward volley error. The frustration on Swiatek's face was palpable. She was constantly looking up at her coaching box, muttering to herself, searching for answers that simply weren't there. Eala broke Swiatek's serve twice in the opening frame, taking the first set with a commanding display of all-court tennis. The crowd was absolutely stunned into a murmuring disbelief. The impenetrable armor of the champion had a glaring crack. Moving into the second set, everyone in the stadium expected the inevitable Swiatek surge. Champions of her caliber do not go quietly into the night, and for a brief, fleeting moment, it looked like normal service had been restored. Swiatek increased the depth of her returns, started serving with more vicious kick out wide, and managed to pin Eala behind the baseline. The Polish star secured an early break, letting out a trademark, guttural roar that echoed around the stadium. It felt like the momentum had decisively shifted. Swiatek leveled the match, taking the second set with the aggressive, suffocating baseline play that has defined her career. At this juncture, conventional wisdom dictated that the plucky underdog had fired her best shot. The champion had weathered the storm, and the third set would be a one-sided procession. But this is where the narrative shattered. This is where Alexander Eala transformed from a rising star into a giant slayer. As the deciding set commenced, Eala took a lengthy bathroom break, a savvy veteran move to reset the tempo and halt Swiatek's surging momentum. When she returned, Eala looked utterly refreshed, her eyes locked in with a terrifying, singular focus. The third set began with a marathon, 12-minute game on Swiatek's serve. Eala relentlessly attacked the second serve, stepping inside the baseline and taking the ball obscenely early. She generated 5 break points in that opening game alone. Swiatek fended off 4 with brilliant clutch serving, but on the 5th, under relentless baseline pressure, she dumped a tight, nervous forehand into the bottom of the net. Eala had the early break, and center court erupted. What followed was a complete and utter collapse of Iga Świątek. It was difficult to watch, yet impossible to look away from. The mental fortress that has won her multiple Grand Slams crumbled into dust. You could visibly see the panic setting in. Swiatek, usually so measured and precise in her footwork, began rushing. She tried to hit her way out of trouble, going for lines that simply weren't there, resulting in a shocking cascade of unforced errors. Her first serve percentage plummeted, hovering in the dangerous low 40s territory. Eala, sensing blood in the water, played with the ruthless instinct of an apex predator. She did not tighten up. She did not play safe, hoping Swiatek would give her the match. Instead, Eala pressed her foot firmly onto the accelerator. She served with impeccable placement, using the body serve effectively to jam Swiatek and draw weak, floating returns. Eala was dictating every rally, pulling Swiatek from corner to corner, forcing the world number 1 to play defensive squash on a tennis court. Eala broke Swiatek again to go up 4-love. The silence in the stadium was deafening. The defending champion was being completely dismantled, not by overpowering brute force, but by a mesmerizing display of tactical variety and psychological warfare. At 5-1 down, serving to stay in the Wimbledon championships, Swiatek stepped up to the line. The tension was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. The first point saw a wild, erratic backhand from Swiatek's sail 3 feet long. The second point, a double fault. The crowd gasped. The world number 1 was completely lost at sea. At love 30, Swiatek managed a brilliant forehand winner, a desperate gasp for air, but it was too little, too late. Eala hit a stunning, running forehand passing shot down the line to bring up double match point, and then the moment that will be replayed on sports networks for decades to come. Swiatek tossed the ball up for her first serve. Fault. She stepped back, wiped her face with her towel, and prepared for the second serve. The stadium was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Swiatek tossed the ball, swung, and the ball clipped the top of the net tape, dying on her own side court. A double fault. The defending champion had essentially handed the match over in the most crushing, heartbreaking way possible. She collapsed to her haunches, burying her face in her hands, utterly devastated. On the other side of the net, Alex Eala dropped her racket, fell to her knees on the hallowed grass, and looked up at the sky in sheer, unadulterated disbelief. She had just slain the dragon. She had just shocked the world. The post-match handshake was a poignant study in contrasts. Swiatek, clearly in a state of shock, offered a quick, respectful embrace before hurrying off the court, head bowed, desperate to escape the glare of the cameras. Eala, meanwhile, was overcome with emotion, weeping tears of joy as she waved the ecstatic, roaring crowd. In her on-court interview, her voice trembled as she spoke about the sacrifices her family made, the grueling hours of training in Spain, and what this victory meant for the people of the Philippines. It was a beautiful, raw, profoundly human moment that transcended the sport itself. So, how do we unpack the deeper implications of this monumental result? Let's start with the fallen champion. For Iga Świątek, this is a devastating setback. A collapse of this magnitude, on this stage, leaves deep psychological scars. We have to ask hard questions about her ability to handle players who successfully disrupt her rhythm. When Plan A fails, when overpowering her opponent from the baseline isn't working, does she have a reliable Plan B? Today, the answer was a resounding no. The extreme Western grip, while a lethal weapon on clay, remains a vulnerability on fast, low-bouncing surfaces when faced with a tactically astute opponent who knows how to exploit it. Swiatek is a phenomenal champion, and she will undoubtedly bounce back, but this match provides a clear, undeniable blueprint for the rest of the locker room on how to dismantle her game. Her aura of invincibility has been thoroughly shattered, and you can guarantee that every player on the WTA Tour was watching this match and taking meticulous notes. For Alex Eala, the sky is now the absolute limit. This victory validates every ounce of hype, every drop of sweat, and every sacrifice she has made since she first picked up a racket. She has proven that she has the tactical intelligence, the physical tools, and crucially, the ice-cold mental fortitude to not only compete with the very best in the world, but to utterly dominate them on the grandest stages. Being the first Filipina to reach this level brings an immense amount of pressure. It is a burden that has crushed many talented athletes before her. But Eala seems to draw immense strength from her heritage. She doesn't view the expectations of her country as a weight. She views them as armor. This win is going to ignite a tennis revolution in the Philippines. We're going to see tennis courts packed, millions of young kids picking up rackets, dreaming of being the next Alex Eala. She has become an instant national hero, a global sporting icon overnight. Tactically, Eala has shown that variety, slice, and courtcraft can still conquer raw power in the modern game. She played a brand of tennis that was beautiful, intelligent, and fiercely competitive. As she advances into the second week of Wimbledon, she is no longer just a dark horse. She is a legitimate, terrifying contender for the Venus Rosewater dish. Furthermore, this result is a massive injection of adrenaline for the entire WTA Tour. For a long time, the narrative has been about a severe lack of depth, about one or two players dominating the field. But Eala's staggering upset proves that the gap is closing rapidly. The younger generation is arriving, not just to participate, but to aggressively overthrow the established order. The women's game is in an incredibly exciting place right now, full of unpredictability, tactical evolution, and massive, earth-shattering drama. As we wrap up this extensive deep dive into a truly historic day of tennis, the reality of what we just witnessed is still sinking in. We saw a champion fall from grace in spectacular, heartbreaking fashion, undone by the intense pressure of the occasion, and a flawless tactical execution from her opponent. And we saw a young, fearless challenger rise to the occasion, transcending her sport to become a national icon. Alex Eala's victory over Iga's Swiatek will be talked about for generations. It is a testament to the beautiful, unpredictable, and fiercely dramatic nature of professional tennis. It reminds us why we watch, why we care so deeply, and why, on any given Sunday, or in this case, a sunny afternoon in London, the impossible can suddenly become reality. Thank you so much for joining me for this incredible breakdown. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our extensive coverage of the beautiful game. I want to hear from you in the comments down below. Where does this rank among the biggest upsets in Wimbledon history? Can Alex Eala go all the way and actually win the tournament? And what does Iga Świątek need to change to prevent a collapse like this from happening again? Drop your thoughts, your theories, and your bold predictions in the comments section. Until next time, keep watching the courts, because as today proved, absolutely anything can happen. I will see you in the next video.